Hello, my name is Julie, and today my favorite show, Taskmaster, is going to be controlling my TBR again. So season 21 of Taskmaster was just released, and last year I had season 19 control my TBR, and that was so much fun. I think the creative process of making that video is one of my favorite things I've ever done on BookTube, so I wanted to do that again, and you all voted that I would. This season I'm so excited for. Like everyone else, I'm a big fan of Kumail Nanjiani, so I was so pumped to see another American on the show. But if you have never seen Taskmaster, it is a British TV show that has been spun off into many other countries, where comedians are competing in a series of strange tasks to try to determine who is the best comedian. Every single series has a different cast of 5 comedians, all from different walks of life, so every single group you get is a different strange variation of people. It is so much fun. It is seriously the thing that probably brings me the most laughs in my life. And I have decided that episode 1 of season 21 is going to control what I read. So I'm going to take every single task that is in episode 1, and it is going to choose what I read. This video will not have spoilers for anything in Taskmaster other than this singular episode. We are going to go back to the past when I first watched the episode and find out what the tasks are. Alrighty, it is finally time for me to watch Taskmaster. It is April 9th, so this has just released. The season will still be going on by the time I actually do this video, but I need to know ahead of time what I'm going to be reading because I already have several books I want to read in May. I am so excited for the season. Do I have any predictions? No, I haven't. It's Taskmaster. I don't have any predictions. I'm just excited. I love Kumail Nanjiani. We're excited. We're just going to start going, so. Okay. Just like last time, I'm just going to be reacting to the reading of the task, and I'm going to go back and watch the episode later, and we can talk about the episode later.
The category is the thing most likely to deter people from your premises. Yes.
What? Okay, deter someone from your property. Deter from property. Okay, what would I bring in if I was a contestant? I mean, like, the route 1 is like you bring like bloody Halloween decorations. But like, I would try to do something that makes me look like I am not a sane person. Would it be too far to do like a sex offender sign or something? Ugh, I don't love that. That's not in character for me, but that was like, how do I get someone to not be on my property? You could put nails all over the ground. There's that. What about, I think somebody's already used this as a prize task. What if you did one of those things that makes sound that only like younger people can hear? Because I know for a fact, I personally have worse hearing than other people my age. We did our hearing test in physics class with a little thing that makes the noise, and I was the first student to put my hand down that I couldn't hear it anymore. And Greg obviously is old. There might be something on the cover of the book that could help deter you from your property, or it could be like a book about a house. Like a book about property. You know what? I'm actually reading a book in April that's like that. That's my immediate thoughts. We'll watch back the episode later and I'll see what I thought. Ooh, we're going into the cubby hole.
Protect this egg.
It's in your pigeonhole.
That's my egg. You must have this egg with you, unseen, for every task and every episode in the studio.
What?
You must hand Alex your wholly intact egg within 30 seconds every time the egg timer goes off. If you mention damage or lose your egg, you are disqualified. Your time starts now.
Oh my God. Okay. I love one of my favorite Taskmaster tasks of all time. It's from season 7. Whenever this alarm goes off, you have to put on a boiler suit, and they decide to do that during a task where they have to tie themselves up as much as possible. And then I loved in season 19, there was like a long piece of paper that they had to read out if they looked under the table or something. Like, I love this idea of like something that's going to continue on for the whole series. So like, I guess whoever is going to have the egg for the longest, and it's going to last the whole series. I hope it's the whole series. That's awesome. They haven't done that before. They haven't done it in episodes that I've watched before. That's awesome. Protecting the egg. I feel like that means I'm going to be reading a fantasy book where we are like protecting a payload. The thing is that The Devils by Joe Abercrombie would have been such a good book for this if I hadn't freaking read it already. You have to keep it on you. What about if I could not let go of a book until I finished it. I think that might be our prompt. Oh, you know what that means? This might be a 6-task episode. I might have to read 6 books for this video. Okay.
Find a worm,
Find a
fastest
worm.
wins. Your time starts now. Let's go.
What?
Okay, find a worm, find a worm, find a little worm.
Okay, this is gonna be a trick. So find a worm, fastest wins. So often that kind of task has some sort of twist to it, but there is a very good chance I just need to read a book with a worm on the cover. Like, I'm gonna have to watch the whole task to see if there's some sort of twist with it, but I do like just going off of the initial brief.
Give Greg 5 foods correctly.
When the buzzer buzzes, give Greg 1 food. If you give Greg the wrong food, you must start again.
If your buzzer does not buzz, you must stay in this room.
First team to give Greg 5 correct foods wins.
You have a maximum of 35 minutes and your time starts immediately.
Who's Greg?
Look, have you seen the show?
Oh, Greg!
You have to give 5 foods correctly to Greg. Do I have to make a quiz show for myself? What if I played like a memory game with myself? That like I have an order in which I have to like touch the books or something like that. Like the first one that I get wrong, if I can't remember the sequence, is the book that I read. We'll come up with something. I'm seeing a golf course, which
Where is he?
love mini golf.
Put the most t-shirts on Alex. Alex would only wear t-shirts launched from the t-shirt launcher.
And onto a target according to the t-shirt launcher rules.
Minutes or until you run out of
Does he have a
t-shirts.
skateboard?
Your time
How old
starts
is
on
he?
the whistle.
With
Have
Sal.
you used a t-shirt launcher before?
No, I've never used a t-shirt launcher before, Alex.
That's awesome. I love when a Taskmaster task is just the prop team coming up like, why don't we come up with a task that has to do with this piece of equipment? I might have to throw my books across the room. Oops.
Find 4 oranges. If you find an apple, you miss your next go. If you find a lemon, the order reverses. If you find a duck,
love her
you
voice.
must greet the duck by name. If you find an orange, you can look under another can. Fastest to find 4 oranges
My
in 1
food's
turn
finished.
wins.
I hate a live task that is only one person wins. Too many of these would be like, oh, let's just do something on the cover. Doing something on the cover is boring and you can only do it one time. And I think the worm, it's the only thing I have. I might have to play like multiple games with my books to do this. I want to come up with something a little bit more creative. I'm going to have to think on this and I'll get back to you in a little bit less than a month. Now that we found out what the tasks are, I have to make them into prompts. So the first task was the prize task, as always, something that would help you best defend your property. And property is the word that stuck in my mind. So I wanted to read a book that has to do with property. Somebody defending their home, somebody dealing with real estate, wanting to get a home. So I am going to be reading Best Offer Wins. This is a book that is actually the Literally Dead book club pick for April. Our main character is a woman living in DC who is really wanting a house and a baby and for her life to be on track. And in order to get the house that she wants in the perfect neighborhood, she is going to do anything it takes. I have heard very mixed reactions from the book club about this book, so I'm really curious to see what I'm going to think of it, because honestly, I haven't found a stellar thriller in a long time. Task number 2, I actually didn't watch the whole of what this task was because I didn't understand what was going on because I was just going through for the filmed clips. I wasn't trying to spoil the previous one, so I didn't see the lead up to this task, that it was a solo task. Basically, to prank one of the contestants, he was given an egg and he had to have it with him at all times during all tasks and bring it out whenever a horn went off. So for this task, I decided the prompt was going to be, I am going to read a book without letting go of it. And for that, I'm going to be reading one of the shortest books on my TBR just to make sure I can actually attain this. And that is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. What I know about this is it is a modern classic, it's YA, and it is about a Latina girl whose family moves into this house on Mango Street in Chicago, and she does not feel proud of where they live. I hear people praising this book generally, but I don't know much about it. It's 110 pages. I think with some pressure, I can finish it all in one go. Then the first task proper was simply find a worm. I decided to read a book that has a worm on the cover. And then I realized that the book that I wanted to read that had worm in the title didn't have a thing that was actually a worm on the cover. And then I watched the task, and it turns out Greg accepted several things that were not technically worms. So I think that Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher is absolutely the perfect book to read for this prompt, because it says worm, and that is a wolf worm on the cover, which is a type of fly, it seems, in its larva state. This is about a woman who does nature illustrations. She gets hired to draw stuff about necrotic bugs, and there's rumors in the small town that she's in that there are these things called blood thieves around. I've read a lot of T. Kingfisher, gothic-y, nature-y vibes, so I think this is going to be a good solid time. Then the next task was a little bit complicated. The contestants were told that they had to feed Greg 5 foods, and he would turn them down if something was wrong. You had to figure out what the rule was. At first, I was just going to go off the idea of like feeding Greg, let's do food. But then what the actual answer to the puzzle was so intriguing to me that I had to include it. So the answer to this was that the word had to be longer in letters than the previous ones. So I decided, let's do books that have only increasing words. How many words can I get to? And then I realized I actually wanted to do 5 words exactly, because that is what the prompt was. And I had a massive journey trying to do this. This was a task that immediately haunted me, and I could think of nothing else for about 24 hours after watching this. I stayed up in the middle of the night. Instead of reading my book, I was desperately scrolling through Goodreads. I scrolled through like 4 years of my friend Katie's Goodreads to try to desperately find a book. The longest I could get on my shelf was a 4-word book, and that was something that I already have set plans to read later in the year, so I didn't want to read that, and also it wasn't 5. So I was just desperately looking, and I realized that brute force wasn't going to be the answer. For this, I was going to have to try to come up with a title in my own head, or a style of title. I looked at this poster I have on here, and I kept seeing On the Road. That's 2, 3, 4. I'm like, great. Could I get like a 1, 2, 3, 4 and do something like that? And I thought, I am not. 1, 2, 3. I thought, oh, I am not your perfect Mexican daughter. Great. And then I spelled it out, and nope, that breaks the rule. And also, I am not your perfect Mexican daughter is 7. I'm like, isn't there a Percival Everett book that is that? And I type in book I am not into Google, and I get this James Baldwin book that says I am not your bleep. And I was like, okay, let's look into that. And it turns out that this book is actually like somebody else made a collection of James Baldwin's stuff after he died based on a documentary that James Baldwin made. And I'm like, I'm not. I'd rather read actual James Baldwin. And I was like, but what am I thinking of? And I searched I am not again, and what came up but I Am Not Sidney Poitier by Percival Everett. I was right that there was a Percival Everett book. It's just not popular enough that it didn't come up immediately when I searched for it. Other than it being by Percival Everett, I know nothing about this book. I have seen 2 Sidney Poitier movies. I'm assuming that this book is going to be about like a black man who is not perfect, or a model black man like Sidney Poitier was always pushed to be. I have read 2 Percival Everetts. One of them I loved, one of them didn't exactly go where I wanted it to, so I'd be interested to see what I'm going to think of this one, especially because I have no idea what it's about. The last 2 tasks were both games that I didn't know what to pull from except to play a game myself. So for the t-shirt target task, where contestants were trying to get t-shirts onto these spots, I decided that I have to get my books onto spots. I am going to put a ton of targets on my floor, and I am going to throw a book. And depending on my score, I will get different books. And these are going to be my point totals I need to get to for different books. The more points a book is, the more I want to read a book this month. The top 2 are books I have to read this month. Middle one is one that I'm absolutely planning on reading this month. And the bottom 2 are ones I absolutely had no plans on reading this month, and it would actually mess me up a little bit if I had to. So let's see how I did. Throw 1. Is that nothing? Dang. Throw 2. Please. Yes. Okay, that's 4. Throw 3. What's that? Please tell me that's a 5. It's a 4. Okay, so that's 8. Throw 4. I think that's touching the 3. It's on the 3. And nothing. So somehow I got the second highest, so I'm going to be reading Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is a book that I have to read this month for the Buzzword Challenge, and it's about a florist who's been told she's boring, so she starts going on fake dates with a bodyguard to try to zhuzh up her dating life. And the live task was a memory game. They had to pick up the cans and try to find 4 oranges without picking up anything else. And this sort of memory game only works in competition. So I decided I was going to give myself a memory game that could work on points. So I decided to make a Simon game. I gave Austin 5 books that I could bring with us on vacation. And he had to make a Simon game. Just like the previous one, the higher I scored, I would get a more favorable book that I wanted to bring on vacation. These were the books that I decided on and the scores. And here's how that game went. Those are the 5
options.
Okay. Alrighty. The first book is Star Eater. Then we have Star Eater, You're Invited. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City. 2, 3, 4. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place. Okay. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited. My left arm's gonna get a workout. Okay. Star Eater. Okay, this is gonna fall. Ugh. You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater. Okay. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory. Oh, The Reformatory twice. Interesting. I'm going to switch hands. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory, The Reformatory. Okay. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory, The Reformatory, Red City. The Reformatory. Okay. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory, The Reformatory. It's gonna fall. Red City, and The Reformatory. Okay. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory, The Reformatory, Red City, The Reformatory, Happy Place. Star Eater, it's gonna fucking fall again. Okay, Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, You're Invited, Star Eater, The Reformatory, The Reformatory, Red City, The Reformatory, Happy Place, Star Eater. I can't believe I'm doing this well. Star Eater, You're Invited, Red City, Happy Place, you're invited. Star Eater, the Reformatory, Red City, the Reformatory, Happy Place, Star Eater, you're invited. Jeez. And I just went to physical therapy. Back to Happy Place. Star Eater, you're invited. Red City, Happy Place, you're invited. Star Eater, the Reformatory, Red City, the Reformatory, Happy Place, Star Eater, you're invited. The Reformatory.
No.
Fuck! What'd I do?
That was the last one. The last one was Happy Place.
Wow, I got 14, or is that 13? It doesn't matter. Both of them were the same score, so I'm bringing the Reformatory on vacation. Wow. Thank you. So somehow I did better than I thought possible. I don't know how I did that. Maybe it was just like the pattern was kind of easy, but I am going to be reading The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. And this is inspired by one of her relatives' real lives where he was taken to a reformatory for young boys in the 1950s. It's a horror where it's a little bit haunted, but most of the horror actually comes from the real life trauma that these boys endured. I've heard literally nobody say anything but massively positive things about this, so I'm anticipating this is gonna be super good. Those are all the books I'm going to be reading. I am going on vacation to the Dominican Republic in a couple of days, and I'm gonna start my reading there, so let's jump to reading my first book.
What does that mean?
Do you not have worms in America?
Hello. There's like nobody around me, so I thought I'd do an update. I might be shaking the camera. I am almost 100 pages into Wolfworm, which is like more than a third of the way there. No, hold up. I can do math. Less than a third of the way. Right? This is 260 pages. I can't do math. Oh, I'm at 90. Okay, we're fine. I am almost exactly a third of the way through Wolfworm. This is set in North Carolina, which is very funny because I'm reading it when I'm not in North Carolina. Our main character is Sonia. She is a woman who's around 30 years old in, I believe, 1899. She was teaching at an all-girls school for a very long time. She's not married, she's a spinster, and her father, who was a naturalist, died, and she is an illustrator. She has been painting plants for a long time, and she gets hired by this reclusive entomologist to paint bugs for him, specifically like things in the fly family. She gets there and like has like the guy who takes her there is really creepy and is like talking about all of these strange things that are in the woods. People are talking about these things called blood thieves and how like a couple of years ago there were all these people and animals that died in a weird way, and people are like, oh my god, that was that, but that's over now, we're all good. And there also is this mystery of like who was the person who was the illustrator before her. They also keep talking about the entomologist's like wife, they could be those two could be the same person. It's a very, you know, the classic gothic mystery of like, who was the person who came before the woman who gets hired on or whatever, which isn't something I'm super interested in, but I like the descriptions of the bugs and everything. I do love how T. Kingfisher's, so much of her horror is dealing with like the real natural world, like nature and stuff like that. I'm not feeling super strongly about it yet, but I'm getting through it. Oh yeah, all of the bugs that the man is studying are specifically the type of bug that they're necrophytes. Is that what they're called? They're the bugs that will eat dead flesh. So that's kind of where part of the creepiness is coming from. She was studying like a live bug that she caught in the house, and like it landed on her wrist or something, and then he tells her that it'll like bury into you or like put its eggs in you, and she was like, oh my god, no. And he's like, you're totally fine, it didn't do anything to you. It has taken very little effort to get to the 90-page mark, so I can't imagine that I will take very long to read this. T. Kingfisher's books are like very easy pleasing for me, and like she's one of those authors that I've just read a ton of her books and I don't really know why, but it's like I know that they're going to be good. I've not had a full 5-star T. Kingfisher. Maybe I just have people in my life who like her stuff. It's like her and Emily Henry. I'm like, I've never had a full 5-star from either of them, but I pick up their stuff and I'm like, it's not like I want to stop. I'd love to finish that like maybe tomorrow or something like that, but I want to attempt to read my next book all in one day while we're still on vacation. I'd like to read it like while we are at the resort. It might be literally easier for me to finish it on the plane. I'll think harder about it.
Hello, I'm in our hotel room. And I did finish Wolfworm yesterday, so I did read this in 2 days. Are you shitting me? I knew you were onto something. While I'm recovering, I did finish Wolfworm yesterday. And at about like, I don't know, like this mark or something, I just said that the main character must be dumb as rocks, because like there had been multiple like reveals or whatever that seemed crazy obvious to me. It seemed like there were only so many options available. It was really unsatisfying for a while. It was just so playing into gothic tropes. And there did end up being like one thing of those little reveals that should have been obvious to me, but I did not call immediately. Like when it was revealed, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I think that this book was very good for its gross descriptions. Like this is talking about bugs that will burrow into things and parasites that will feed off of you or a mammal or a bird or whatever. And if like descriptions of that is the type of horror you want to read, I would go into this. I don't think anything particularly scary happens in this book. I think it's a gross horror. I do think it's within the realm of What Moves the Dead, which I did realize in my previous clip. I couldn't think of what my favorite T. Kingfisher was because it's been so long since I read my first T. Kingfisher, which was What Moves the Dead, which is my favorite of hers. I don't know, I like the descriptions of like painting and art and everything, but I ultimately think that this was like a pretty short horror book, obviously. And I was just kind of like, yeah, this was fine. It was a very easy reading experience. And I think that that has been my experience with T. Kingfisher a lot. Should I be prioritizing T. Kingfisher as much as I am? I don't know. Liked it, wasn't obsessed with it, so I think I will be giving this 3 Taskmaster points. Next up, I am going to start the reformatory on our last full day of vacation, and then on our travel day, I am going to read the entirety of The House on Mango Street, and then go back to finishing the reformatory. So you might see a reformatory update while I'm on vacation, and then something later.
Wait. Oh.
What's going on?
I've got an egg.
You got a what?
Has no one else got an egg?
Can we see your egg? Oh, no. Yeah, I see what's happened here, Greg. There's a chance I might have forgotten to give this one to everyone. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Hello. I did end up finishing The House on Mango Street without letting go of it because, oh my god, those are the 2 books he's reading on vacation. He has gotten a good way through the abyss and he's decided to go fully with the audiobook of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Thank you. Because I was just reading this on the plane. I just read it basically straight through. I read the first half of it while we were waiting to take off, and the last half of it in the first hour or so. I had no idea how short this book was. Like, I knew it was short and I checked the word count beforehand, but like almost every single chapter looks like this. Usually 1 to 2 pages long. What I did not know about this book is that it is told in vignettes. So this is about a teenage girl, Esperanza, who her family has moved into a house on Mango Street in Chicago, and she feels a lot of shame for where they live, and she wants to have a better place to live. She wants to have a better life than the one she has. But this is told in vignettes, so like every chapter is a small story. Some of those stories are just more standout than others. But I was impressed how, even though this book is written pretty sparsely, it was impactful. And I think even though we are spread out amongst a ton of different characters, even though we're not always focused on the main character, there still is this sense of like growth and maturity, or like just getting older and different things in her life popping up, like her body changing, people viewing her differently, and also maturing enough to realize that like things that she did were wrong. There's not a strong plot structure, but there is still a sense of development, which I think was pretty cool. This is a book that I like totally understand being something that you want to teach in class because it is so short. But on the other hand, I feel like some people might struggle with its non-specific structure. So I think it would be interesting to see how this is taught in classrooms. It's literally only 110 pages, barely, with huge font, and most of the chapters are like only a paragraph or 2 long. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to be rating this if I do rate it, because like it's so short, and sometimes I don't rate things like that I was just impressed with how much it did with so few words, how it really did portray being at that age of like 13, 14 years old, how hard it can be to have all the feelings that you have and not necessarily being able to put all of those things into words, not really knowing how to go about the world yet. I'm glad I have finally checked this classic off of my list. Glad to have read it, and it was an easy one to read without physically letting go of. I have also started 2 other books for this video at this point, but I will hold off until later to do that because we are about to board to try to get home after getting delayed 2 separate times. And it's gotten to the point where I am just going to, I have doctor's appointments tomorrow. I'm going to be getting into town so late that I'm just going to take sick leave the whole day. I will actually get some sleep. That's good.
What have you bought to deter people from my property?
Very simple, Mrs. Clatterbottom.
Full size.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah.
I think the light will actually go on in the living room, and you'll walk down the path and then the light will come on and Clatterbottom will be there.
Clatterbottom's there?
Yeah.
I'm never going to break into that house.
Well, that's a good start.
It's one of the strongest starts we've ever had.
Well done.
But it doesn't mean it won't come last.
Hello,
I am over the third mark, but under the half mark of 2 separate books for this video. And I'm going to talk about it in one clip and edit it to be 2 separate clips. So you're going to see one and then the other of me literally in the same spot. My physical read right now is Best Offer Wins, which yes, I did start reading the Reformatory on my trip. And then I realized, oh, I actually have time to finish Best Offer Wins in the month, but I don't have time to read the Reformatory. So I just full pivoted to Best Offer Wins. Plus, I'm not so much of a mood reader that like I can't read a sad book, but like I was not feeling reading such a sad book while I was on the beach. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am now into Best Offer Wins, which I did get like a third of the way into after reading House on Mango Street. This is about Margot, who she is a woman who is very ambitious. She wants like a certain standard of living for herself. She grew up in a family that seems to have had money at one point in her life, but did not sustain that amount of money. And she has like a big chip on her shoulder about that and wants to appear to be rich. She was a journalist and her husband had like a big time rich job, and then he quit that to join the EPA, which was his dream job, and now they don't have the standard of living that she wants. They're living in DC, so she quits to be a PR person. And she has been wanting to live in this specific neighborhood that is everything she's ever wanted, and it also seems stuff starts going on the market at a reasonable price, but the offers that end up taking it are way out of their price range. Like they thought that they would have the house and have the baby on the way already, but they've been living in this small apartment for 18 months after selling their old place to try to get enough money to get a big house. She has found the perfect place from her realtor telling her, hey, this place is about to go on the market. And essentially she decides to stalk the family in order to try to get in with them, to try to get them to sell her their house. But things go sour with that. Her trying to get in with them is not the only plot of the book. I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about this book going in. I was under the impression that it was more going to be about multiple people fighting to get the house rather than just this one person determined to get the house. And I honestly think having some sort of competition for the house rather than the vague other people will want it would have been more interesting. Margot is out of her mind. She is, sociopath maybe? Like she doesn't give a shit about her husband. She's so obsessed with having a house and a baby. I don't know if she has ever cared about those things truthfully. Like either she has been driven so much by this want for those things that she has completely lost the plot and like is not participating at her job, doesn't care about her husband, will literally do anything, but it really seems like her husband is like a means to an end for her. She wants this sort of family life that she never felt like she had growing up because her parents weren't around that much, that she is like, oh, I need to attain this, and once I do, I will be happy, except she won't because she doesn't give a shit about those things. I think it's easy to get through. I think it's kind of going to turn into a little bit more of like a regular thrillery. What counts as a domestic thriller? Does it have to be between like a married couple to be that? I don't know, but like it feels like a small cast thriller is coming out, and I think my interest is waning. I'm hoping to get to the 2/3 mark today and finish it tomorrow, which will be the last day of the month. For an ebook, I feel like I'm getting through it pretty easily, but I might have just thought that because I was in airport purgatory for several hours and had time to get stuff done, versus now I'm like, oh, I have a house to take care of. I have to feed myself. I have work tomorrow. That's all I have to say there. I'm gonna go update the other clip. I've completely forgot to tell you about a very fun Taskmaster thing that happened to me. And that was that a couple of months ago, I actually went to the Taskmaster live show that happened in DC. It was a nightmare to try to get tickets to this. And I was not on the Reddit before this. And I realized that like people who were on the Reddit, not only did they leaked early access to get tickets, they also leaked information to possibly get them to be on stage at the show. And so that kind of sucked personally as someone who didn't know a whole lot about that ahead of time, but like My dad was very nice and ended up going to DC with me, even though we could not get another ticket for him. Like, it would have been hundreds of dollars for this show, and it was really cool. So I can't remember what the theater was called, but it was right down the road from Ford's Theater. First of all, there were so many like fun Taskmastery shirts and everything that people were wearing. I forgot. Everyone and their mom wanted merch so badly that the merch line wrapped around the entire theater, and the person who was next to me gave me a friendship bracelet that said Taskmaster on it, which was super sweet. I ended up getting in the merch line 2 things. There was a pin set, which I am a pin collector. I collect Disney pins as well as just like anything else that I'm a big fan of. So it came in this little foldy thing, and then wear these pins, your time starts now. So I haven't actually started wearing the pins. I don't really wear pins. I have like a pin board. So there's the Taskmaster house, there's Greg's head, there's a Taskmaster stamp, and then their thrones are not staying upside the right way. And then I also thought that the keychain was very cute. I don't actually currently have a keychain. Like, I just have my car key fob just like loose in my purse. This was cheap enough that I was like, it's cute, I'm just gonna get it. And it has the Taskmaster envelope, and then it has On Stage USA. If you'd like to listen to the show that I attended, you can actually listen to it, because the Taskmaster podcast released the recording of it, so I was there. The beginning of the show was just a Q&A from people who are in the audience, and this is where part of the Reddit cheating came in, is that they had a thing where if you asked them about their socks, that you would get a free pair of socks, and people had told the Reddit that. And so people have just started asking sock questions to get free stuff. Then we were all given like 2 pieces of paper, a pencil, but they had 3 different tasks that every single person in the audience did. And whoever won that task got to be on stage and be one of the contestants. And they brought in 2 like local comedians who would also join. And then they did a mini Taskmaster episode where there was like a prize, and there were just, a bunch of live tasks. There's a little like hint during one of the tasks to get you on stage that I think a person knew, because they were also the exact same person who knew the sock thing, that they were able to get on stage. And because of that, they already knew what the prize task was. So they just had something, they packed something with them to get to the show in order to win the prize task. And Alex and Greg kind of like looked at each other like they didn't technically cheat to get on there, but like definitely was not in the spirit of the show. And honestly, it made me kind of mad. But the tasks themselves were like of a mixed variety. Some of them were going well. There was sausage or finger, which is very classic. And there were some that were just like going on for a long time, but it was very cool to just be in the same room as Greg and Alex. And I actually got seats moved up. I was in the back, but there were some seats that had restricted viewing because of the speakers that had to be installed in this old theater. Me and the person next to me were asked if we wanted to go up and sit there so we could see Greg and Alex way up close, and I'll show pictures, even if we couldn't really see the contestants, which whatever, it's fine, I'm here for them anyway. So I had a good time, and actually on that trip I actually got to meet my friend Katie, who Forevermore Pages on Instagram, who has been my Bookstagram best friend for like many, many years now. We actually got to meet in person. Hopefully next time they will actually get venues that are for the amount of people who are going to be there, because they severely underestimated the number of people who wanted to go to these shows. So hopefully they've got an idea of demand now. My favorite location and yours, the floor, is back for another double update, because I finished the 2 books like within an hour of each other. We have just gotten back from watching your Carolina Hurricanes absolutely stomp the Flyers in game 1 of round 2 of the playoffs. We are so hot right now. We have not trailed for over 600 minutes of game. We are the only team in like 35 years to never trail in the first 5 games of the playoffs, which is kind of crazy. We are doing so well right now, and I don't want to jinx it, but I just got this baseball jersey that they just released. It's just a baseball jersey. I thought it was so cute, so my dad got this for me as an early birthday present. Thanks, Dad. And it has 97 for the Canes founding. Anyway, we had a good time. I just launched my readathon, so that's literally what I was doing most of the day when we were not in town shopping for Mother's Day stuff. Back to best offer wins. Yes, the middle of this book is a little bit boring and goes into like regular mystery thrillery territory. I think the beginning of the book is pretty interesting. The middle, I was kind of like, I don't really care. And then the end was objectively interesting. And I was curious what was going on, because I think what the author did really well with the end of this book is the order in which the reader gets information. So we find out that the main character is doing something, but we do not get all the information about what she's done until the chain of events has happened. I guess it kind of reminds me of that kind of rule in storytelling that if you are told what the plan is ahead of time, it is going to fail. But if you are not told the plan ahead of time, it is going to succeed. Once that was actually pointed out to me, I find that it kind of breaks something when you're reading a story that has some sort of like heist or something going on. They're like, oh, okay, well, I know how this part's going to go because they told me. I never found myself overly attached during this book. In the synopsis of it, it says that like, even though the main character's doing so many terrible things, like you're gonna root for her. And I actually didn't find myself rooting for her. Even though she is definitely one of those anti-hero main characters who's doing all of these things for her own gain, whatever. And like, I can get behind a book like that. I just kind of wanted her to get a comeuppance. I think that there were some really fun reveals that happen with this. I thought the ending actually was the strongest suit of the book, which I think is hard for a thriller to do. If you like the typical thriller structure and want something that goes like a little bit further than your regular domestic thriller, I would put this on your radar. I don't know what it is about this book, but I felt very neutral about it while reading it, even when engaging things were happening. One of the things that the main character is doing is absolutely ignoring her job that, like, you know, she needs to be able to keep in order to be able to pay for the house that she wants. And the fact that she's ignoring her job actually annoyed me because I was like, this is getting in the way of you getting what you want. Like, you can't afford the house if you don't have a job, which is like such a stupid thing for me to like comment about. But I'm like, obviously she does not have a head on her shoulders, but you have to keep something in order to keep this goal going. So I think it was all right, but like, I don't know how long I'm going to be thinking about this book afterwards. So unfortunately, I think I'm giving this another 3 points. Like, I think that this is like a 3.5. I definitely enjoyed it more than a 3-star, but not enough to be a 4-star. So I think this is a 3.5 for me. So let's move on to the book that I've already finished, and we'll get back to me here.
No.
No? What? He said
What?
no. He said no to carrot.
He suggested carrot before.
So there's an order. Okay.
The mood has really changed.
Okay, now I am back in this clip. We are talking about I Am Not Sidney Poitier. So I knew nothing about this book. I was going to use this book for my Game Changer readathon that is probably going on now as you're watching this video. I don't know when this is coming out exactly. There is a prompt to read a book that you know nothing about. And other than the title of this book, and that it's by Percival Everett, I literally knew nothing going in. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how I could have known. There's only one thing to know going in. You asked me ahead of time what this book was gonna be about. I thought it was going to be about not being the model black man like Sidney Poitier was in all of his movies. Like, if you've seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, like the only objection that the family has to Sidney Poitier is that he is black, right? It's not about anything to do with him because he's literally perfect and it's not enough. Or that, like, in order for a black person to be seen as human, they have to be perfect. That's the idea, right? And so that's what I was thinking. I thought it was going to be metaphor, but no, I forgot how much of a satirist that Percival Everett, like, this is definitely having ironic humor that I have seen from him. Having read this, I could totally tell that this is the same author that wrote Erasure, which became the movie American Fiction. James, less so, but it's there. There's a lot of like random inserts about things that aren't really the plot that happens in like all 3 of his books that I've read. But this is about a kid who was born in the 70s, whose name is literally not Sidney Poitier. That's his name. Not Sidney is his first name. He also resembles Sidney Poitier quite a bit. His mom came into a lot of money and died when he was young, and then he was put into the care of the white guy who was entrusted with his mom's money, who like she invested in his company or something like that. It has been bouncing around in the plot so much that I don't know what like the overall structure of this book is going to be. And honestly, I get why this author ended up writing James, in the sense that like it kind of is that Mark Twain-y, like every chapter is a new zany hijinks. Hijink? Is that the singular hijinks? I don't see where this is going at this point, because it seems to be that our main character is just observing a lot of different weird people. This is somewhat metafiction, so like one of the characters in this book is Jane Fonda, and I've just been introduced to the character of Percival Everett himself. And at the beginning of the book, it's had a little thing that was saying like, oh, all resemblance to persons living or dead, whatever, it was a different than normal warning. Like these people are not the real people. Am I also getting a bit of like a Kurt Vonnegut vibe? I am listening to the audiobook. I think the audiobook is well narrated, so I've been getting along with that. I would not recommend the audiobook for Erasure. I would neutrally recommend it for this. I don't even know what to talk about with the plot, because it's been so many different things have happened so far in only what probably amounts to about 125 pages. It feels like that's what I wanted to say. It feels like a folk tale, like a tall tale. It is somebody telling their seemingly exaggerated life story. And it is like a skipping through his life. It literally starts with his birth and his mom saying that he was a 24-month pregnancy. Like it does have that Big Fish kind of feel to it. And then it's like into his school years, how he was bullied because that was his name and people got frustrated. He had like a martial arts teacher who was like actually just beating him up more. And then like he was assaulted by a teacher and no one believed him. It's a big old fly. And then like he finally leaves Atlanta for the first time and he's like arrested just for being a black man, literally. Framing it as like a folktale, but in semi-modern day, I think makes a lot of sense. And I am just curious as to see where this is going to go, because I have no idea. This plot feels like it's just ripping past us. So we'll see. That looks great. We're back again, Kane's Jersey, and I have finished I Am Not Sidney Poitier. Something I did not know when I filmed the original clip for this is that this is about Sidney Poitier's movies. And I have only seen 2 Sidney Poitier movies, and only one of them is in this lineup. So this is told in like 7 chapters or something like that, and each of those feels like the short story things that I was talking about earlier. They kind of do feel disjointed. Like it is still a plot, like there are still like characters he'll like have phone calls with that continue throughout the story, but each of these sections feels pretty distinct, and that is because they are inspired by a different movie each, and it is going to take that concept and do a twist on it. The only one that I have watched that was in this is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which is about a black man and a white woman who meet on vacation, immediately hit it off, and they want to be together. But he's going to be moving out of the country because he's a professor. He's gonna be like teaching in Europe somewhere. They go back to her family's house to like get permission to get married so that she can live with him and go to Europe, which the family has no problem with him except for the fact that he's black. What they should have wrong with him is the fact that their daughter met him like a week ago. They have known each other for like maybe 2 weeks and they're like, we're going to get married, which I know it was the 60s, but that's ridiculous. So there is a chapter in which he is going to his very light-skinned girlfriend's house for Thanksgiving. He experiences, I mean, straight, like sometimes it's like overhearing people making comments about him and everything. Sometimes it's like microaggressions, but like most of the time it's way bigger than a microaggression. I think that section might have been my favorite, and I think it's possibly because like I was clued in the most to what the source material was. He has this shadow of Sidney Poitier over him because his mother named him not Sidney Poitier. And then as he's growing up, he looks remarkably like him. There's a bit of a dichotomy between his blackness and his wealth, as people want to treat him like two different people because of that thing, especially because he is dark-skinned as well. As the book goes on, it becomes harder and harder for him to say he is not Sidney Poitier. Like he stops correcting people very directly. I really enjoyed the inclusion of Percival Everett as a character in this book. He is one of his professors at Morehouse, and he teaches a class. This is about nonsense, and then he speaks a lot of nonsense. Very Vonnegut or Joseph Heller. A lot of this book, I was sort of thinking about the construction of the book. I was spending time thinking about what does every action that Sidney takes means, and what is this evolution of character. And I think that this is one that I could chew on for a while. I kind of wish that I had read this in a school setting. I wish that I was taking like a film class or something and we like watched the original movie and we read the book alongside it. Also, there are dream sequences in this book that is very in Percival Everett's style. In this, it is dreams of weird things happening to him, and those are different Sidney Poitier movies. I would say that I enjoyed this book more than I enjoyed Erasure / American Fiction. I think Not Sidney was an interesting character. He tries to, create his own path. He doesn't feel like he has a way to create his own path because he keeps getting trapped in all of these other situations, and he never really has like an idea of himself. And as it goes along, it's harder and harder for him to shirk the things that people put on him. But it's also not necessarily in like such a entrapping way. It doesn't come across as like something tragic. Also, I had no idea that the guy who like took him in kind of became a guardian of him once his mom died, is Ted Turner. I didn't know who Ted Turner was. He's the founder of CNN. And also he was married to Jane Fonda, at least in the book. I didn't Google if that happened in real life. Probably. I'm not sure. I think this is just a book that I need to chew on for longer. It's so strange, and I've really read not much like it. I enjoyed it, but like I know because there are things that I missed because I don't know how the movie went, but I'm also like interested in watching the movie. Like I don't want to spoil the movie. This is something that like I want to go do research about this book. At least on my Taskmaster scale, I want to give this 4 points because I think that this was a interesting one that I'm going to be thinking about for a while.
I'm trying something else.
Okay.
New strategy. That's never happened to me before. It's not usually a problem I have.
That has happened to you before.
Yeah, it just happened to me now twice in a row.
Hey, so I started Practice Makes Perfect in the car on my way home. There was a little bit of traffic coming home, so I was anticipating, oh my god, I'm gonna get a little bit further into my audiobook than I normally would, which is great because my audiobook only came in part of the way through the day, so I couldn't listen to it on my drive here. Awesome, that's so good. And like, I was ready to go into this book and be surprised by it and actually like this book after not liking a different book from this author. That is not what's happening. This book immediately is pissing me off in multiple ways. Number one thing, this book, in the first 5 minutes and 16 seconds of the audiobook, including the introduction and like the material at the front, like, this is Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, like including that, the term socially anxious was used 4 times in 5 minutes. Guys, do we think she's socially anxious? This is the second book in a romance series. I was interested in the first book a long time ago because it has to do with baking and everything, and I love books that have to do with food. When in Rome is that title of the first book. I had that on my list for so long, and it turns out that that actually has a really low average rating. So I ended up taking it off of my TBR a long time ago. When Aardvark was kind of just starting, they continued to have this deal. You can get your first book for $4. And I was so tempted. I decided to pick up this book, having not read a book from that author before, being vaguely interested in it, and honestly looking back on it, I don't know why I thought this book would be for me. Fake dating with a bodyguard and a florist. I think it was more that it was an author that I had previously been interested in 2 of her books, When in Rome and The Cheat Sheet. So I bought the book and hadn't read it for years. And then I ended up reading The Cheat Sheet with my old book club 2 years ago or something like that. And I really, really did not like the book from the very beginning. Basically, nobody in the book club liked the book. And it's because it's not very good. This is a book that I thought about getting rid of, but then it turns out for the buzzwordathon, makes or make was the buzzword. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this for this, and then I'm gonna get it off my shelf. Also, the ending of The Cheat Sheet is one of the worst endings to a romance I have ever read in my life. I also kind of forgot that I guess The Cheat Sheet is like a clean romance. And so I think that this is like carrying over to this one, like the main character already said HE double hockey sticks, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know that I can do something like that kitschy. Not that like I need spice in my romance, it's just this like attitude that the author has, and I'm like, I'm not into this, especially because it's like, oh, the bodyguard guy, we already know he sleeps around, and it's like, I don't like this. This is making me uncomfortable. So it turns out our main character is the sister of the guy in the first book. And she has been seeing all this like love around her and everything. Her parents have the perfect marriage and she has the perfect life, except she does not have marriage. I feel like I've read a synopsis a couple of times in which the main character is like, I have the perfect life, except I don't have like love. I don't have like a romantic love interest or whatever. I've never heard someone say specifically, I don't have marriage. And something about that gave me pause because it feels like instead of wanting an actual relationship where she's getting to know somebody or someone to like fulfill an emotional need for her, it feels like she just wants to check the box of having a ring on her finger. Maybe that's also part of what the author is going for, but it was just something really interesting that I've never heard a character start off a book with, I really want to get married. And it's not for like a financial reason or like a marriage of convenience sort of situation. That's totally different. She has been trying to go out on dates, but she is not very good at it because she's, quote, socially anxious. We hear that 80,000 times. And she goes on an absolutely terrible date because she doesn't know how to talk to people. And it was so awful to read. It was so cringe. And then the bodyguard guy ends up walking into the same restaurant with a date of his, and he sees her date bail on her, and he ends up walking her out to her car. She's like, oh my god, he's so hot. I've been thinking he's so hot for so long. And then it switches over to his perspective, and I'm like, okay, great. Dual perspective. And he can't even pay attention to his date because he's just thinking about how attracted he is to the other girl. I hate this. This is something that I've started noticing with romance series. I'm really, really not liking when in a romance series that is supposed to be interconnected standalones, when they have the characters interact in the first book and then they just give you a little paragraph of what their situation is in this next book. In my opinion, in order to fully sell me on this, you should give me scenes of these characters meeting. I should get scenes that take place during book one as a prologue or something like that. Don't just tell me what happened in the first book, because we didn't see from your perspective in the first book. I just think it's really lazy writing to basically give me a synopsis of these characters rather than actually showing me on the page. And I'm just having a major problem with, why does every single romance author have to write interconnected standalones? It has to be the thing that makes them the most money. Just off the bat, I am cringing really hard at this and I'm not liking it and I want to DNF it. I think I want to give it a little bit more of a chance. It is not the worst thing I've read this year, and this is a book that I own, so I kind of do want to give it more of a chance than if I had just like checked this out from the library. And it is for the Buzzwordathon, and it is for this video, so there's a very good chance. Like, I think I want to push myself to get to the 50% mark, and if I hate it, I'll DNF it. Deal? Deal. Hi, I have not finished Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams because I am not going to finish it at all. I have not DNF'd a book since I got an e-arc of A Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand and hated that so much, and it was so long and I couldn't get through it even though it was an arc. Since then, I have read some books that I've really hated and I forced myself through them. I just looked back at my Goodreads maybe a day or two ago and looked through my DNF shelf, and I realized that like back when I picked up like a bunch of books off of the library shelf that I had never heard of before, I would DNF a book no problem because like I had never heard of the book before and it was just a library book, so I could just return it. And that obviously was before I started making any sort of content. I prefer not DNFing books, but like a lot of books that I would like to DNF, like I had a reason why I picked it up in the first place. And this book, I should not have bought this book. I think if I had just read the chapter sampler, I would have not bought this book. I think that this is poorly written. I think the characters are not very well developed, and the relationship between them, despite them talking about having feelings for each other, seems purely physical because they have nothing to really go off of. Like every conversation between the two of them has very little substance to it, and like it's just the two of them being like, oh man, the other person's so hot, I wish I could kiss them right now. The main character is a florist, and she is supposed to be doing the flower for her brother's / this giant pop star's wedding, and we get none of that. We get nothing about that. It is only really centered on this relationship between the two of them. And like the only thing that's really relevant to their story is that she's supposed to be a goody two shoes. I have no idea. I would never pick this up today. And the only reason I'm reading it now is because 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to buy it. And past me has made some bad financial decisions with books that I am now having to rectify, which is why I'm doing all of these things to try to fix my shelves. Well, by the time this video is posted, I will have posted my year-long project of trying to predict the ratings I will give books for an entire year. What I had found out is that I tended to rate books that I got from the library higher than books that I own. And so I then tried to break that down even more, and what I discovered was books that I purchased myself full price and books that I asked for from friends and family for like birthdays or Christmas or whatever, I rated those books really high and higher than I rated the library books. Like all of their averages were above 4 stars. But the books that I owned that I bought for cheap, I rated way, way lower. And so I've just kind of learned a lot that I need to be more particular about what I buy. What else can I say about this book? I think these characters are paper thin. I do not believe that either of these are actual characters. I just don't think that there's anything underneath the surface. It just felt like the author was trying to ping dialogue back and forth. Some of the situations that they're in, it's so weird. Like there can't be a scene without the two of them together. Like there's no external lives that they have to each other, which doesn't make any sense. The male main character's backstory is laughable. He doesn't believe in marriage because his parents got divorced. And then his little brother is a divorce lawyer who decided to propose to a woman after 3 months. I dragged myself to the 50% mark. Every single time I put on the audiobook for this, I would flip it off after like 5 minutes and be like, oh my god, that's so cringe. I hate that. And that's exactly actually what happened to me with The Cheat Sheet, which is the other book that I've read by her. But I actually thought that that book had a couple of redeeming scenes. There's like one scene in that book that I think is so good. And I could tell from the very beginning that this was a book that I was going to hate. So I realized that I'm just like, I just don't need to waste my life. And the fact that I'm doing this in a video, I think just like marks that I am actually making change in my reading life, at least. If you like romance anything like me, I would not recommend Sarah Adams. I have now given her 2 chances and both of them were really not good. I think if I ended up finishing this book, I would have given it like a 2-star flat. It's not egregious. It's just like Hallmark movie not good. I don't think Sarah Adams is a very good writer. I just don't think she has a lot of substance behind what she's writing. I think she was just like, good girl character, bad boy character. Okay, we're gonna make them want to sleep together, but not sleep together. So it's very fan fiction-y in that these characters would make more sense if this was like an AU. You, the reader, know more about these characters than the author writes because you're already supposed to have been involved in some sort of IP. Like, that would make so much more sense if this was a fan fiction. But it's not. It's just not very good. Anyway, I cannot believe I'm actually DNFing a book in a book that I own in a video. Like, that's crazy. I want to actually get through books this month, and I actually could not force myself through the audiobook. I had to turn the audiobook up to 3 speed and listen to it in tiny bursts to be able to get to the 50% mark because I thought it was so cringe. Get it out of here. That is definitely 1 point on the Taskmaster scale. I guess it's Taskmaster. We can disqualify this book. This book is getting fully disqualified, 0 points.
I always thought Joanna...
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Yes.
This feels right. Joanna, this could be the greatest moment in Taskmaster history.
Oh my God.
After talking about it for a while, I have finally gotten a good portion of the way through. The reformatory book's over there. I just have this. There you go. You know what I'm talking about. I am over the 200-page mark. I am over the 1/3 mark of the reformatory. The reformatory is inspired by Tananarive Dew's relative's real-life experience going to a reformatory in the mid-1900s. So this is set in 1950 in Florida. We have 2 main characters. They are siblings. We have Robert and Gloria. They are Black. She is like 16 and he's like 12. Their mother passed away a couple years ago, and their father is a union leader, a Black union leader in the South. He ended up trying to get a union together and ended up getting run out of town. And he has been living in Chicago trying to get enough money to bring them up with him. And so the 2 of them are by themselves and struggling. Gloria has had to quit school, which was her dream to be a teacher and everything, and she is having to take care of Robert. They've actually been left to the care of a 80-something-year-old woman who we don't really think that she is, capable of taking care of herself, much less like watching after these kids diligently, even though she is a wonderful, wonderful woman. The son of the rich white family in town starts coming on to Gloria. Robert is defending his sister. The white boy pushes him, and Robert kicks him, literally in self-defense. The boy wasn't going to do anything about this. He's an uppity white person, but he's not as bad as his father is, and his father ends up witnessing this, gets Robert, the 12-year-old, arrested, and he is sent off to the reformatory that is in their town, which white boys and Black boys are both at. A lot of the horror of this book comes from the real-life horrors that these boys had to go through, but it's not entirely, because there is actual supernatural horror going on as the boys there, specifically the youngest of them, tend to see ghosts or haints. This book has been so easy to get through so far, despite the subject material and despite how long it is. Every single time I've sat down to read it, I have gotten through way more pages than I would have thought possible during that amount of time, and I've just found this writing style just plugging straight into my brain. Like, sometimes you read a book and you are very aware of just reading words on a page, and sometimes you're watching a movie in your mind, and I think that this is definitely one of those books that is transportive. I really like that this is being told from the perspective of both Robert and Gloria. I think I probably knew that at one point in time, but I didn't remember that Gloria was going to be one of the perspectives, and I think the balance between the 2 of them has been really good, and I think it is showing a much more full picture of this situation because it is showing the reformatory from the inside and the outside. I am really anticipating I'm gonna love this book. It's been a book that makes you angry in a purposeful way. There were certain points in this book where I was just like out loud being like, oh my God, please don't let that happen. Please don't let that happen. And some things are gonna happen, some things are actually avoided. But I have been really getting along with this one. It has had like a wider cast than I thought, and I have just been really rooting for these characters to get Robert out of there because it is going to be so difficult, and he is way too young. The conditions that they are in are very reminiscent of slavery, and it is so disgusting to know that this is something that happened in real life and also fairly recently. So I am really interested to learn more from what this book is going to tell me. Hello, I'm checking in with you at the, hold on, I thought it was 500 page mark. No, we are at the 420 page mark of 560-ish. I think this book is great. Like, I understand everything that people have said about this book. It is just as good as everyone's talking about. And you know what? I think the reason why this is one of the highest rated horrors of the last several years is because it is more general fiction with a magical realism horror plot. It does have the horror genre in it, but that is not the front and center. I think that this book is interesting because unless you're Stephen King, horror books don't get this long a lot of the time. This book takes place over the course of only like 2 weeks or something like that. I was really anticipating with the fact that, you know, Robbie is sent for 6 months, that this is going to take place over a longer period of time, but it doesn't. It is a short thing, but we are taking our time with every single day, and yet the book still feels fast-paced, which is so interesting to me. I'm probably not going to have a lot to say at the end of this unless something really surprises me, because I feel like I can't talk about this book too much because I'm just like, it's really good. End of thought. There was a reveal that had happened by this point in the book that I picked up on right before it was revealed, and I was under the impression that that was going to be an end of book reveal, and I was really happy that the author did not draw that out. And because that was revealed, we created a new plot line, and I think that's almost got like a thriller angle to it. Like, we've got something like high stakes that we're aiming for, and I think that that was really cool, and I think this does a really good job of balancing all the different plates in the air at the same time. It's just doing a lot, and it's doing it economically. There's so much going on, but it doesn't feel busy. It's really going into the details, but it feels fast-paced. Like, everything about this, like, is just, this is so technically sound. However, I do feel like emotionally, it's not giving me that je ne sais quoi of a 5-star feeling, but this is one of those books that I feel like is going to be an objective 5-star. I really like the cast of characters. I thought that like the side characters weren't going to be people I really cared about as much, but I think that like particularly Miss Lottie, who is the older woman there with, I really enjoy her contributions to this because she's more than just like, she kind of feels comedic at the beginning and then she's actually getting into it. And I like all of the different angles of people that we're talking to and seeing more of like what the political landscape is and how these people are unsafe in their own home and in this community that they've been in for a very long time, because that is the reality of racism, and how there are also different levels of allyship and how they truly cannot really trust anyone to go to bat for them because you don't know who to trust, but you also don't know people's capabilities, and the fine line that people have to walk to try to be treated equally, and you will never, ever walk that fine line all the way down the end. Like, you will always stumble somewhere, and the white people are going to find a way to say, actually, you know what? No, you don't deserve that because you're not equal to me and I'm better than you and all that, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to learn more about Tananarive Dew's backlist because I'm only familiar with the one that's got a house on the cover. I want to say that's the house with good bones. I don't think it is. I don't know what this is. This is definitely a book that I would recommend really widely, and I completely understand this being the book on my physical TBR that the most people told me to read. So let's finish it out. Hello. I have finished The Reformatory and thus finished my last book for this video. I really, really enjoyed this book. I just went, if I sound weird, I don't know if I do, or look weird or whatever. I am sick. I have a cold. Things felt pretty dire this afternoon, but I'm feeling much better. Also, very important, the Carolina Hurricanes just became the first team in modern hockey history to sweep the first 2 series of the playoffs. And I was just as tense in that overtime as if we were about to get eliminated, as if we were the Flyers, even though the Flyers barely had any possession at all in overtime. So I don't know what I was so worried about. I was just like, I just felt like it was too good to be true because we are known for choking in the playoffs. So knocking on wood, yeah, I'm just not feeling great. And today has been a very busy and more tiring than usual day because I had multiple plans going on and I just wanted to like lay in bed, and now I'm going to get to go to bed early and I'm very excited for that. Unfortunately, because I'm sick, like some of my birthday plans are going to have to be postponed, which I'm sad about, but it'll happen anyway. But this is objectively a 5-star book. I don't think it's subjectively a 5-star book. So I think that like I'm probably going to land on a 4.5 for this. I think I felt very similarly to this as I did Betty, just in terms of like, wow, I'm reading such a very high quality book. They're also both historical fictions that are inspired by a relative of the authors. I never thought of that. That was not intentional, but maybe that's where the connection's coming from. But like in terms of my feelings toward it, like I think that there is not a single thing wrong with this book. I think that it is a really big accomplishment. It just didn't have that like little edge to make it a new favorite. And that's okay. I still read a really high quality book. I'm so glad I own it. And this is what I'm going to be recommending really, really widely. I thought the ending act of this book was so tense, and it just really became a good pinnacle to the story. And it kind of reminds me of how, I don't know, there's a couple movies that I've seen recently where like it seems like you have one plot in the first 2 acts and then the third act kind of becomes a little bit more action-y, but it ends up like really culminating the plot in a really good way. Even though it's not as literary in what the plot is, it still maintains that literary feel, even though it's going into thrillery territory of how we are trying to help out Robert and get him out of there. I think that it still maintained such high quality. I think that what was really interesting about the horror of this book, in order for a book to be considered horror, it has to have massive gore, or it has to be supernatural, paranormal, not realistic fiction in some way. Otherwise, it's a thriller. That is just how categorization works, truly. Or in this case, it would just be in historical fiction, were it not for the horror element of the haints and ghosts. And also, Gloria has this ability to see the future a little bit, or she can kind of tell what Robert's going through. The supernatural elements of this book are not the scary part. I think that is such an interesting way to approach this, especially because it's a lot of Black storytelling tradition to include ancestors and that being so important, and relying on the people who came before you and connecting to them, and that being integrated into this, I thought was awesome. So this is inspired specifically by the Dozier School for Boys and also another school, but that was the one that her relative went to. She also talked about in her author's note how like this was also inspired by all of the schools that Indigenous children were taken to and murdered in, specifically in Canada, but also in the US. And I just think that this is a really good representation of that period and the fear that was sown into people who were not white because they were not allowed to be. It's just fantastic. I don't have a lot else to say. That was my last book that Taskmaster gave me, and I am going to be giving this a fat 5 points in terms of the Taskmaster scale. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have been loving season 21 of Taskmaster. And if you don't watch Taskmaster, I hope this video encouraged you to, because I love that show. I'm actually behind on the season, but I'm going to catch up by the time you see it. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to follow me anywhere, you can find all of my links down in the description. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what you've been thinking of the most recent Taskmaster season. And if you don't have anything to say and you got to the end, why not leave me a ghost emoji in honor of the reformatory? I'd love to see that you're here. And it does actually help out the channel, as does hyping up videos. That is like a big thing right now. And otherwise, if you'd like to keep watching my videos, why not subscribe? I would absolutely love to have you around. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.